I wonder what this magic pencil is gonna draw this time. It appears to be Mickey from Mickey and the Beanstalk. And he blasts off with this particular champagne bottle. So, 1947, that the actual Mickey and the Beanstalk cartoon exists. So, hey, what's up everybody? It is I am the one and only Sonic the Hedgehog here. Once again, I am back for yet again for the likes of the Maxi Toys videos here. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Mickey Mania, aka Mickey's Wild Adventure from the likes of the forms of the Sega Mega Drive / Sega Genesis, along with the Super Nintendo version, Sega Mega CD or Sega CD for those of you who lived in America, and finally the PlayStation. So yeah, last time we have basically managed to able to tackle through 4 levels apiece, such as for instance Steamboat Wheelie, along with the Mad Doctor, and even especially noticeable with Moose Hunters, despite what the forms of that technical problem for the sake of the forms of the Moose Chase sequence. That's only mainly because, like I said before, that this is going to be played through on the Sega Genesis Classic Mini, just because I think that might be the only method I'm going to be doing for this point. So, and on top of all that stuff though, we also did manage to tackle through probably is the trickiest level out of the lot so far, which appears to be the Lonesome Ghosts. So today, for this video, this is going to be the finale, just like the forms of how it does it on any other shorter license-based video games and stuff like that, like movie license games and stuff like that, like Toy Story and stuff like that. So because of that though, as you can see on screen, we are moving on to the next level in this game, which appears to be based off from Mickey and the Beanstalk, which, a fun factor about this is the fact that I'm pretty sure this particular cartoon did somehow manage to able to get its release during the forms of the Disney Classics lineup, based off from the forms of Fun and Fantasy Free. So because of that though, that, mind you, I didn't exactly own the actual, the film compilation, so because of that, though, because, as far as I can tell, that, back in the forms of the 1940s, before, or actually, kind of think about it, after the release of Dumbo, along with, Pinocchio, and Fantasia, and especially noticeable for Bambi, or in this case in the chronological order actually, when it comes to Disney films being released, Pinocchio, Fantasia, along with the films of Dumbo and Bambi, that back in the films of in the mid-40s, that basically though, they somehow managed able to release certain films that are essentially like compilations and stuff like that, like some of those shorter movies or short films, all bundled in one in particular film package. So because of that though, despite there are some very good ones for sure, but usually the only ones I'm sort of familiar with this, and that's what appears to be the Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, just because of my childhood memories and stuff like that. But that's probably just me anyway though. So anyway, so let's go into this underground segment, where basically we have to dodge a lot of those bugs here and there, and also gonna think about it, that this level might also contain a unique bonus stage. Well, first off, we need to get out of this place before we're able to try to find the bonus stage. So in this case though, let's just go ahead and bounce onto those little bugs or anything else like that, so we can essentially try to able to just bounce onto them for surely. And then if you activate that switch, that actually allows you to able to go down there. Speaking of going down there, oh god, here's that creepy spider, so we need to able to try to escape, because there's no way we can fight her, so we can just hop onto the ladybug, and jeez, he's the fastest thing alive. Well, usually I'm the fastest thing alive, excuse me, but either way though, I have no idea why I'm saying things weirdly enough at this point, but either way though, yeah, today's date is of course the, I won't say today it's the 20th of July today, in this case in 2022 today. Not much else is going on, I'm afraid, apart from the fact that, well, relatively speaking, although I'll get more details about the actual, gaming related stuff in a second. So anyways, oh yeah, by the way, every time you step onto these specific seeds, basically those tiny beanstalks just somehow rises. So, and then there's also a switch up there, which I don't know if you noticed, but since about the fact that this is my first time experiencing this level, so I'm pretty sure I'm very curious to see what that switch activates for. But basically, before we move along, if you try to jump onto these butterflies very carefully, in addition to getting yourself some more hit points for the stars, and also we got an extra life as well, and also we stumbled across the question mark. So if we dive right into it, wild, Mickey has found a time warp to a secret bonus level. And kind of think about it, this is only apparent, although before we get into that, the band concert in 1935, at least as far as I can recall correctly. So basically, this is a bonus stage, basically, and in order to get something rewarding, it's the fact that you have to time your jumps correctly if you're trying to hop onto those specific boxes. And if you're trying to climb all the way higher up, then if you're trying to reach to band concert Mickey, then you would able to get something that is very rewarding, despite it's a bit of a late game syndrome. However, if you accidentally fall off the whole entire purpose of the stage, you don't get anything, so you just go all the way back to your resuming point, to the likes of the forms of Mickey and the Beanstalk. So yeah, it's definitely a little bit tricky, but when you get the timing going, it might not be too bad. So anyway, so we've reached at the top of this segment, so bonus, bonus, bonus. Mickey has found band leader Mickey. Have an extra continue. So yeah, we actually got ourselves a freebie continue. So we can able to actually now use that if we somehow manage to run out of lives. So that'll be helpful though, especially noticeable whenever we get to the late game, then we have no troubles with it whatsoever. Well, despite the fact that it might actually be a little bit tricky and difficult as it goes by. So anyways, let's get rid of those butterflies as it is. By the way, with the Forms of the Band concert bonus level, this only appears onto the Mega Drive version, along with the Sega Mega CD version, along with the PlayStation 1 version. However, the Super Nintendo version does not include the entire level, so because of that though, well, alongside with that, that's the only reason why that I'm referring to as the fact that sometimes the Super Nintendo version might be inferior to some people because of how the fact that they removed some of these levels. Like, for instance, they removed band concert level, which is essentially the bonus level, alongside with the forms of in one of those segments in I think it's one of those stairwells, and for the sake of the forms of the Mad Doctor level. So yeah, it feels kind of underwhelming to able to hear that, but regardless of everything else though, that's why I essentially prefer the Mega Drive version, just because, well, everything else in this particular version is so great, along with the PlayStation version, despite that most people complain about the difficulty, just because the difficulty on the PlayStation version can sometimes feel a bit too much. So as a result of that kind of stuff though, that basically as far as I can usually try to describe it. So, and by the way, I did not notice you can able to actually hop into those specific segments like this, because I almost first thought that basically just trying to go to the right might actually continue the level, but it turns out you get able to actually hop into, I would say like a the rope staircase or something like that, but when you get the timing going and if you're trying to able to jump up, and then basically this will lead you to, I would say, the last segment of the level, which takes place in somewhere in a dining table. So, while trying to dodge a lot of those bugs, including by the forms of those dragonflies, along with the forms of those beetle bugs, and this place is just kind of brutal sometimes. But regardless of everything else though, thankfully the butterflies are nothing right to home about, because you can just essentially use your marbles in order to deal with them that way. However though, when it comes to dragonflies though, I swear to God, they always try to ambush me sometimes. But anyway, for the most part it's not too bad if you manage to get the hang of this though. So as long as you won't get hit so many times, you say. So although kind of think about it though, I still have not actually seen Mickey and the Beanstalk yet, but from what I've heard, it's actually really dang good. Although it does manage to involve around in Mickey, Donald, and Goofy and stuff like that. And basically there's actually a main villain of that particular cartoon called, Winnie the Giant. So, speaking of which though, congratulations, Mickey has managed to find Mickey and the Beanstalk Mickey. And however though, if you ever play this on the PlayStation version, there's also another running level where you get chased by Winnie the Giant. So, something's worth mentioning, and I think I should probably do a video comparison of, multiple versions of this game basically, and doing it at some point in the future, so. And it looks like we've stumbled across into not one, but two Mickeys in The Prince and the Pauper in 1990. In this case, welcome to the final level in the game, so because of that though, like I said before, this game only has 6 levels. So because of this though, I get the strong sense of feeling that The Prince and the Pauper might actually be one of the longest stages in the game. just because there's gonna be a lot of emphasis on not only the Tron era moments but it's also about the fact that we will come across into probably is the most annoying enemies in this game. But before we get into this though, we need to do a back and forth between momentum with that particular chandelier. So because of that though, it does almost kind of remind me of Mega Man 9. I think it's in, I would say, Black Hole Man, or it's hard to tell because it's been a very long while since I actually last played Mega Man 9 from the likes of the forms of, well, at the moment right now, I've already completed the game, I would say twice. One time on the PlayStation 4 during the forms of the marathon of any sorts back in about almost entirely like 4 years ago. And there's also the Switch version, which I somehow still managed to have. So because of that, though, it's a good thing I still managed to get Mega Man 9 on the Nintendo Switch thanks to the Legacy Collection compilation, because I can't be bothered able to actually get the Xbox 360 version or the PlayStation 3 versions of those games, because my lord, those achievements are really damn impossible to achieve. But that's only mainly because, well, relatively speaking, I think the Switch version might be the most comfortable experiences for my book, especially because, you know, play those classic Mega Man games on the go, which is awesome, and stuff like that. So, yeah, you probably get the idea. In fact, kind of think about it, I have not seen The Prince and the Pauper, specifically the Disney version, for donkey's years. I think the last time I sort of remember it is the fact that sometimes they always advertise that for the sake of the forms of the storybook favorites. Advertisement for the sake of the forms of the VHS collections and stuff like that, which I always appreciate about that stuff though. But, at least as far as for my childhood memories, as far as I was going to be thinking about anyway. Speaking of which though, is the fact that what I've noticed is the fact that The Prince and the Pauper just somehow came out in 1990. Does that look familiar to you? Well, if you're falling for certain trailers out there, specifically back in 1990, have you heard of the film called The Rescuers Down Under? Sorry for that little tongue twist in the end, folks, because I was going to try to say something specific, but for some reason I just always get my tongue twisting for some reason. But anyway, yeah, remember the film called The Rescuers Down Under? That basically, that film also came out during the forms of in 1990, so I'm guessing back in the theater days, at least I thought so anyway, that I think The Prince and the Pauper did somehow showed up first, as far as I can recall. Mind you, I haven't exactly born during the forms of in 1990, because I'm more into 97, so because of that though, not much else to talk about basically. So because of this though, yeah, like I mentioned this before, today's day is of course the 20th of July, so relatively speaking, only 9 more days to go until specifically Xenoblade Chronicles 3 will be releasing on the Nintendo Switch. So because of that though, despite it's still not my interest, because obviously I'm more into Zelda, Mario, Sonic, and you name the rest, and also Kirby, and recently Klonoa, because, you know, the actual revival comeback. So, anywho, so let's just go ahead and dodge those specific parts falling off, because if you dare touch those parts falling, basically that also counts as damage. So because of that though, you have to be very careful about that. And also I just realized something, is the fact that on the outside portion of that particular background you see, it's actually snowing, which makes sense because obviously, well, despite having, you know, like I said, I haven't exactly watched The Prince and the Pauper for donkey's years, because I've heard some interesting aspects of it, but either way, well done, Pauper Mickey has been found, but the prince is held in a dungeon. So we must find the prince before it's too late. So, yeah, this is what I mean about the fact that the level itself is actually one of the hardest levels in the game. Not just because it forms of a lot of enemies, like I just got my another death right there, but also coming up is the fact that they'll brings us into one of the hardest segments of the game. So, either way though, we've got to be like, you know, do our timing well enough for certain jumps, and as well as for me forms about the fact that, oh, another thing is worth mentioning for that this level is also very long as well. So relatively speaking, there's not much right to home about. So, anyways, let's just go ahead and go for the series of obstacles right here. Although, there's one thing I forgot to mention about ever since during the course of on Monday, that basically there's that annoying moment where you have to deal with a leaps of faith judging the distance kind of way. Like, as you probably already know from the likes of the Lonesome Ghost level, basically I somehow managed able to obtain an extra life rather than just able to actually get more hit points, because I'm rather able to actually take lives over the forms of hit points. Although, don't get me wrong, hit points can be handy though, but for some reason I'm more into the forms of extra lives and what have you, so that, wow, I honestly have no words to think about it. So, and by the way, with that switch I somehow activated for, basically that allows me to able to go into the dungeon part, so, and quickly pump this little inflatable duck thingy right here, so just in case you will be safe from that particular, or what's like a poison water and stuff like that, because much like the forms of the Lonesome Ghosts level, basically if you dare touch the water, then obviously you get hit. So yeah, something to keep in mind, able to watch out for. Oh, and by the way, with those particular marbles, as we keep on like tossing into those enemies right here with all these like weasels and stuff like that, well, basically if you dare jump on those specific guys like this, basically they are a massive defense guys. So because of this though, they just had a lot of, you know, armor and stuff like that. Oh boy, this part is very tricky, but as long as you would pay attention, although if you somehow die on these parts, basically you have to start all over for this entire segment again, so that won't be that fun if you're not careful enough. But thankfully we've got ourselves the actual star hit point, so just in case we should be safe from now on. Well, I say for the most part, because sometimes I keep on just getting hit, so that's not reasonable, but it knows what it is for the most part right here, so. See, I think for the most part the best method for this level though is the fact that you don't rush this though, although sometimes you will be for certain platforming segments here and there, but also just be patient as well, so just in case you don't want to be too reckless, especially noticeable while trying to deal with certain weasel enemies and stuff like that, because again, you can't necessarily, well, you can jump on them, but ultimately though, you can't kill them because obviously they have like armor onto them, so oh boy, this is where things get a lot more difficult at this point. So because of this though, well, at the very least though, luckily though, we're almost nearly at the end of this game basically, so it's just the fact the matter is though, is just, well, patience is key to winning, so well, for the most part anyway, so anyways, let's just go ahead and wait for a while and try to get rid of those weasels, so just in case we'll need to get some clear space, so just in case we don't able to die, because at the moment I've only got 1 unit of health left, so yeah, it's gonna have to be very cautious with this part, so just in case I really refuse to die, especially noticeable about the fact that, well, if you die, again, as I said before, you have to start all over at the beginning of the segment of the level, but since I still got myself my continue and stuff like that, so that means, although the only unfortunate thing is about it though, is the fact that I lose a lot of my progression if I somehow use my only continue in the game. So because of that though, yeah, if you somehow use the continue in any level, then basically I'm just gonna have to able to just, well, just make sure about the fact that, well, relatively speaking, that you have to go all the way back to the beginning of the level. So because of that though, that might be a little bit stingy, but regardless of such though, that's how archaic games plays out to be. So, oh, and also another thing, you have to use this rock in order to able to activate the switch at all times, so just in case you find yourselves the Prince Mickey. So because of that though, yeah, if you think we've done, well, turns out there's more to it than that. So in this case, we now move on to, I would say, the 2 harder segments of the entire game. Such as, for instance, much like the forms of the Mad Doctor level, we somehow taking place in the forms of the stairwells kind of level. So because of that, this is by far the hardest of the 2, mainly because about the fact that you have to deal with a lot of like dodging, you know, spike balls, and also on top of all that stuff though, as you can tell, there's now flames into the actual, the bottom segment, as opposed to like, well, you know, tons of bats or any other box crates from the previous level. Actually, I keep thinking about the phones of the PlayStation 1 version, kind of think about it, so, anyways. Because, kind of think about it, on the likes of the Sega Mega Drive, along with the forms of, let's just say the Sega Mega CD version, that, you have to dodge barrels for some reason. But anyways, here's the hardest aspect about this particular stage, and also the entire game, because, as you can tell, a lot of weasel-like enemies, and on top of all that stuff though, there's just so much you got to avoid, including the lava pit of death, because if you fell, basically, we have to able to go all the way back to the beginning of the stage, so that's something I need to be very cautious about. And if you think this is over, well, we still have not done yet, so we need to able to go through you know, chain swings, and also just trying to deal with even more weasel enemies. Oh, and by the way, if you ever guys ever played, not only the Sega Mega CD version of the game, but also the PlayStation version, that, basically you get yourselves an additional new level as well. Well, I'll talk more about it as soon as I'm able to try to focus on this last part right here, so... Because, you know, concentration and patience is still key to victory here, so... Anyway, so let's just go ahead and hop on to not 1, but not 2, but not 3, but 4 chain swings. So, yeah, so you have to be very careful around here. Alright, so we're almost there now. It's just, well, let's have to do with this last few segments, and we just need to be very careful not to able to get, you know, dang it, I totally forgot that weasel over there just struck me, but as soon as I just turn around. But regardless, we're almost there, just a couple of bounces on certain weasels, and we've made it. Uh-oh, Mickey must face the biggest Pete of all in the final showdown. Now, I believe in the, like I said before, the Mega CD version, along with the PlayStation version, basically you get yourselves an additional segment as well. To be more specifically, if you're trying to obtain this magical pencil of any sort, basically you are able to summon different counterparts of Mickey, so that it deals the amount of damage to the actual big mean Pete. So, but I digress. But sadly it doesn't appear from the likes of the Super Nintendo version or the Sega Genesis or Mega Drive versions, but that's okay. Because this fight is overall pretty simple. Well, at the same time, it is without doubt the hardest fight, just because, well, obviously we need to able to take him down by utilizing the actual spiky object. And in order to do this, we need to push the actual, the spiky object as soon as you're able to actually push it into the middle portion of the room. And that, as you can see, when Pete just somehow managed to do his stomp ability, and basically that deals the damage. If you think this is done, turns out we've only got one more segment to go through, and that is something to do with this wrecking ball. And in order to go for that though, while trying to dodge a lot of shurikens and stuff like that, but also get this, is the fact that you have to utilize Pete's throwing sword right there, as soon as when the sword is somehow attached to the wall, and then basically you have to activate those switches in order able to activate the wrecking ball between left or right respectively, depending on what Pete was actually in. But for the most part, when you get the hang of it though, it might not be too challenging, but it will still be a lot harder, just because, well, as you can tell, we're almost gonna get wrecked by the forms of not only shuriken kind of projectiles we need to dodge, but also at the same time though, is the fact that you have to get a lot of emphasis on the forms of some pattern memorization. So because of this though, yeah, and I think this boss might take a bit while to able to complete, just because he has like a lot of hit points compared to the forms of how it does it on any other bosses for that matter. So but for the most part though, when you get the hang of it though, it might not be too bad after all. So there we go, we've basically completed the game. So yeah, well done Mickey for able to saving the day. Especially noticeable about the fact that, well, relatively speaking, despite how difficult it is, well, I fully accomplished something for once, so, but I digress. See, there's not much else to say about this for this point, so, yeah, I apologize for that particular commentary in the end, gets a bit tad awkward, just because I believe, once again, that my computer just keeps lagging most of the time, which to be expected about the fact that it's actually still getting old, and on top of all that stuff, though, is the fact that the amount of heat wave we've got for the past few days, mind you, has come down recently, but not forever though, until specifically on September or October sometime. But either way though, yeah, once you're able to actually beat the final boss, then much like in any other video games, like specifically Toy Story and stuff like that, basically, we're able to actually see the enemy roll call, and then afterwards though, it gives you a final message for saying thank you for playing Mickey Mania or Mickey's Wild Adventure, depending on what version you're playing. So yeah, let's give my final thoughts of Mickey Mania for specifically the Sega Mega Drive / Sega Genesis versions. I will say that this game is just awesome. Like, the graphics looks really damn impressive, even on the Sega Genesis title, and the graphics, well, like I said before, the graphics are so good. The gameplay itself is actually, well, plays great, and purely simple to able to get accustomed to, despite the fact that the difficulty will start to ramp up every now and then, especially towards the end game. But regardless of such though, it might able to actually bother some people if they get a lot of trial and error on there, but that's to be expected with most retro video games every now and then. And also, I really enjoyed the soundtrack in this game. It sounds a little bit more upbeat and all that stuff, especially noticeable with all that Genesis twang and stuff like that. And also another thing as well, the controls are so sweet as well, despite the fact that sometimes I lost my hit detection and stuff like that, especially noticeable while trying to do with platforming. But regardless of such though, it doesn't have any flaws whatsoever. Well, apart from the fact that on the Super Nintendo version, at least in my opinion, is by far the worst version of the game, just because, you know what I mean, sense about the fact that despite the Sega Mega Drive and the Super Nintendo versions, they are both cartridge versions of the entire game, that for some reason on the Super Nintendo version has loading screens, which it doesn't make that much sense. And as a result of that kind of stuff though, I think I should probably go for the Mega Drive version along with the Mega CD version, because it's kind of identical but with CD audio quality. So because of this though, yeah, thank you guys so much for watching of our, well, you know, our Let's Play of Mickey Mania. So because of that though, yeah, relatively speaking, if you're trying to find this on the cheap, then you would able to have a good time. Oh, I suppose I should probably mention about this before we end off this video right here, especially noticeable with the Let's Play itself. Apparently this game only came out in Japan for the sake of the, I want to say the Sega Mega Drive, and especially noticeable with the Super Nintendo version. So, no Japanese release on the Mega CD version or the PlayStation version. I'm guessing it's because usually for the CD-based version of the game, it will actually recorded as in English language. So because of that though, I don't think they'll try to do the Japanese language or anything else like that. So yeah, I think that basically entirely suggests by that point. So anyways, like I said before, thank you guys so much for watching of our Let's Play of Mickey Mania. It's actually a pretty fun game to go through, despite I did manage to die quite a few times because of how the fact that sometimes trial and error usually comes into play every now and then. But regardless of everything else though, I had a lot of fun with it. So and in fact, let me know in the comments down below which one of those Mickey Mouse games I would like to tackle through next. I know for the fact that the Magical Quest series is definitely one of the biggest highlights in terms of the forms of those Mickey Mouse games, along with illusion games, specifically Castle of Illusion and Land of Illusion, or Power of Illusion for the sake of Epic Mickey, or World of Illusion starring Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck. I keep on saying Daffy Duck for some reason, despite he was a Looney Tunes cartoon character, so or maybe I was thinking about Who Framed Roger Rabbit and stuff like that. So yeah, this is me, Sonic the Hedgehog, from the likes of the Maxi Toys, and stay tuned until this coming Friday that yes, Ray, Mighty, and Pac-Man are finally coming back onto The Simpsons Hit and Run for the sake of the forms of this coming Friday. So hopefully those three will about to finish that game up until we move on to the biggest marathon. So yeah, as I said, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.